In the 14th century, Europe was a continent of kingdoms held together by fragile alliances, feudal obligations, and dynastic claims. Among the most powerful of these were England and France, two nations with long histories of rivalry, shared bloodlines, and competing ambitions. It was during this century that a conflict erupted which would last in phases for over 100 years. The 100 Years' War did not begin with a single battle, but with a chain of political events and disputes that gradually pushed both kingdoms toward open hostility. The immediate trigger was a succession crisis in France. In 1328, King Charles IV of France died without a male heir. This marked the end of the direct male line of the Capetian dynasty. According to French tradition and feudal law, the crown should pass through the male line. But Edward III of England also had a claim. He was the son of Isabella of France, Charles IV's sister, and the grandson of Philip IV of France. Edward's claim was based on inheritance through his mother, but the French nobility rejected it. They invoked a legal principle known as Salic law, which barred inheritance of the crown through the female line. Instead, they chose Philip of Valois, a cousin of Charles IV, who became Philip VI of France. With this decision, the Valois dynasty began its reign. At the time, Edward III did not contest the outcome forcefully. He was still a young king working to stabilize his rule in England following the turbulent reign and deposition of his father, Edward II. For several years, he paid homage to Philip VI for his lands in France, particularly the Duchy of Aquitaine, which included the economically valuable region of Gascony. Despite outward peace, the relationship between the two crowns remained tense. One major source of friction was control over Aquitaine. Though English kings had held the territory since the 12th century, they did so as vassals of the French king. The French monarchy increasingly sought to assert direct control over the region, while the English crown viewed such interference as an encroachment on its authority. Further complicating matters was the alliance between France and Scotland. Known as the Old Alliance, this long-standing partnership threatened England from the north. David II of Scotland, who had been driven into exile, found refuge and support in France. This French backing of Scotland was perceived by Edward III as a direct threat, adding another layer to the already strained Anglo-French relationship. The situation reached a breaking point in 1337. Philip VI formally confiscated the Duchy of Aquitaine from Edward III, citing failures in feudal obligations. To Edward, this act was an outright challenge to his authority and honor. In response, on October 1337, Edward publicly declared himself the rightful king of France. Though this was a bold political statement, it was not yet followed by immediate large-scale warfare. However, it marked the formal beginning of what would come to be known as the 100 Years' War. From this point forward, England and France were locked in a deepening conflict that extended beyond simple feudal disagreement and into a full contest for power, legitimacy, and control of land. Following Edward's declaration, both sides began preparing for conflict. Edward turned to diplomacy, securing alliances in the Low Countries and within the Holy Roman Empire. Philip VI, for his part, focused on consolidating his control in France and suppressing dissent. Both kingdoms started building their fleets and assembling armies. By 1340, England and France were no longer just maneuvering politically. They were on the edge of war at sea. That year, the two powers would face off in the Battle of Sluys, a major naval confrontation that would shape the early momentum of the conflict.